Public hearing on the 2014 levy to order. Roll call.
Mr. Granado?
Present.
Mr. O'Shea?
Here.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen?
You will not be here.
Mr. Colstead?
Here. Okay. Comments from Evelyn?
Thank you. The 2014 levy shows an increased dollar amount of $183,209, which is a 17.6% increase over the amount of taxes that were extended or billed for 2013. Keeping in mind that the levy is prepared, but we have to prepare it for the worst case scenario because we're guessing at three important factors that we don't know. We don't know what the equalized assessed value is for the property within the district. We don't know the value of any new property that will be added to the tax rolls, and we don't know what the equalizer will be. So without knowing those things, we prepare the levy based on some of the worst case scenarios. We ran the numbers against a value of new property from 0 to $4 million, and we ran it against an EAV dropping between 10 and 20%. Those are the things that drove us to the numbers that are here. Because the levy is more than a 5% increase over last year's extension, we're required to hold a public hearing and publish a notice in the newspaper. The notice was published in the Messenger on Thursday, December 4th, as required by the statute. Keep in mind that no matter what we ask for in the levy, we never get more than we're entitled to under tax caps and rate ceilings that are applied to several of our funds, including the corporate fund and the recreation fund. The CPI for 2014 levy is 1.5%, which would amount to around $15,000 increase in our extension. Actually, this CPI, as you know, is from December of 13, so just to keep you in the flow of how this happens, we use the CPI from last year. We don't get the taxes until 2015. So there's a 2-year drag time in this process as well. So I prepared a spreadsheet for you, which we reviewed last week, which shows that no matter what we ask for, the extension or the amount that is billed is never as much as the levy. And the amount that we actually collect is less than that. We collect about 95 to 97% of what is billed each year. Along with the levy that has been prepared by a treasurer, we're also asking you tonight to pass a resolution instructing the county clerk to apportion the reductions that will come because of tax caps. We're asking them to take 60% of that reduction from the corporate fund and 40% from the recreation fund. So following the public hearing tonight, these two motions will be on your agenda for approval.
Okay. Thanks, Evelyn. Any comments from the public? Yes.
I don't know if I have to state my name or anything.
Please state your name, address.
Kathy Caveney, 14632 Keeler Avenue. The spreadsheet that Evelyn referred to, is that available for our view?
Not really. It's up to you.
Well, would that spreadsheet show what the increased tax levy is going to be used for? Was that the purpose of the spreadsheet?
No. It's comparisons of prior years that we discussed last week in our meeting.
Last year, did you have the same meeting to increase the tax levy last year, or is this the first time?
Last year, so there's about 4 years comparison.
Every year we have a levy here.
Okay, and what was the requested increase for last year? So I'm assuming that the Park District is subject to certain tax caps similar to the village, but maybe not exact to the village.
No, the village is not subject to tax caps, being a home rule community.
Well, we have a tax cap in place right now.
That's a self-imposed tax cap that the village board put in.
Okay, then could you explain to us, because we don't know the difference between the way our property taxes are for the village versus how we're taxed by the Park District and how they differ?
Under the PTEL, which is the property tax elimination that was set by the state. We are under a tax cap which only allows us to get the CPI increase over what we received the prior year,
Which
no
would be
matter how much we
1.5%?
levy for,
Okay, which would be 1.5%.
1.5%.
Okay, so then if there's a tax cap for 1.5%, we're asking for a 14% increase, but that 14% increase is based on projected numbers that you don't know about.
The factors we
Did I
don't
understand
know-
that correct?
The factors we don't know at this point in time is we don't know what the equalized assessed valuation of all the property in Midlothian is.
Mm-hmm.
And the other factor that we do not know is what the new property is.
But don't you always not know that same information every year?
That's why we levy for more than we know we're gonna get. So that,
And-
once those numbers are put to the whole calculation to get to the taxes,
Mm-hmm.
that we get the maximum amount that we're entitled to.
So if there's a tax cap in place of 1.5% over the prior year, then how is it that you guys can ask for a 14% increase if there's an imposed cap? Then does that imposed cap go away?
Taxing bodies can ask for whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
They're only gonna get, under tax caps, they're only gonna get what they're allowed under the current property tax elimination law.
Okay, if we're only allowed to get 1.5%, then why is the request being made for 14%?
We have to ask for a dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what the equalized assessed valuation is gonna be, and we don't know how that's gonna calculate out as far as the amount of money. So if we only ask for for the exact amount that we're gonna get, we could actually get less than that, depending on what the EAV is and what the new property is.
The tax rate is multiplied by the equalized assessed value.
Right.
Our equalized assessed value has dropped by 35% over the last 4 years.
Right.
We don't know what it's gonna be, so
Mhm.
that number times the assessed value gives you the amount of money. We
Mhm.
know the amount of money, it's like an algebra problem.
Mhm.
We're missing, we don't know X.
Right,
We have to guess at it.
right. Well, isn't our village subject to the same algebra problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Except their home rule.
Mm-hmm. Right, but we have a self-imposed tax cap, so they still can't raise the taxes any more than 1.5% or the CPI as well. So, without having a better understanding of what this money's gonna be used for or how this equation all works out, I really would not be in favor of the Park District asking for a 14% increase.
We're not gonna get a 14% increase. We already know that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get what the county allows.
Which is 1.5% over last year?
Right. At a maximum.
Okay, then I still am failing to understand why we need to ask for 14%.
Well,
Can I ask a question? Excuse me, Carol Ferguson, 14532 Colmar. So just with what you're saying, so let's say, I'm gonna throw out a number, let's say we got $3,000 last year. I know it's not right. If everything's the same, you're gonna get 1.5% more than the 3,000.
Correct.
As long as everything's the same. So let's say our value last year was $4 million. If they tell us this year it's 2 million, because we just, whatever reason, if you only ask for 3,000 plus the 1.5%, and it was only at 2,000, you're gonna get like nothing. You won't even get your $3,000, right? If I think my math correctly?
Right. And the other part of that problem is that next year's levy is based on what we get this year. If you guess wrong, and you guess too low, and you get less, then your next increase is based on that lesser amount. So
Right.
you're in the hole and you continue
So
to be.
it's better to ask for more and get less than ask for
You
what
ask-
we think we're gonna get?
Basically, you
Because then
ask
you
for
could get,
more.
I'm gonna say screwed, sorry, but you truly can get, I mean,
You
because
get-
if that value drops,
You
then
ask
you're
for
s-
more so you get what you're entitled to.
Right.
That's basically the
yeah,
way it
okay.
works.
I just wanted to make sure I understood it the way I thought I did.
It's a very complex situation.
And I'm sure it is.
And, and we, county is only gonna give us you know, under the tax caps what we're entitled to.
But without those numbers, you don't know what that's gonna be. You can guess, you can
Right.
try and use last year's numbers and increase it a generic percentage, but there's no guarantee that number's gonna go up.
That's correct.
In fact, this year's levy is less than last year's levy.
Right. So if you would have went with what I got last year, you actually would have gotten less this year, without trying to sort of hope for a little bit more. Okay.
Plus, I think they asked for, you asked for dollars and not percentages, if I gathered that
Yes.
correctly.
Right.
So,
In each fund.
in each fund. So you can go in asking for 14% or 14,000, which is calculated to 3%, and if that's under the 1.5, then you're gonna get that, as long as everything else falls into place.
Which it won't. The county is already predicting that the EAV is dropping another 8 to 10, up, it could be as much as 20%, so that's what we based our guessing on.
So it's always better to ask for more, knowing that you're not gonna get it, but ask for it.
Yes.
Understandable.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Jackie Hill, property owner, 4223 West 147th Street. I went to a meeting in August at the Ray Day Lodge, and the presentation was given by a company called IQ Properties, and these people specialize in property tax reductions. The meeting was very well attended, so there are a lot of people interested in doing this kind of thing. One of the interesting points I never thought about is the more you appeal your assessment, you get a reduction, and the more people who apply and get reductions, the tax levies are gonna go down because people are constantly appealing them.
Not the levies, the equalized assessed
I mean,
valuation.
I'm sorry, yes, the property taxes themselves. So.
And that's not just for the Park District, that's all of the districts that are relying on those property taxes,
Right.
yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is this really the best way to keep on going with the outlook being that, you know, the basis could well keep on dropping? I appeal my taxes for the 3 properties I have regularly, and I've had significant reductions. So my thought is, you know, maybe we need to be looking to another side of this other than just, you know, your regular increase.
Such as?
I'm not on the board, I don't know, but I'm just saying, I went to that meeting and I had never thought about that long-term until they said, you know, we're going to significantly lower property taxes for the residents.
Right, that's part of the process.
Right.
And we have large businesses and Midlothian Country Club and, you know, and Life have protested their taxes for tax reductions.
Right.
So even though, you know, quite a bit more than the individual property owners. So, it's the commercial side that is also doing the same thing, so.
And again, one of the things we discovered or just tracked, it's about $35 to $38 million a year in lowering the equalized assessed value of the property due to exemptions, including the homeowner's exemption, senior exemption, and property people who appeal their property tax, which is really an appeal of their equalized assessed value. So knowing, I guess what I would say is contrary to what you're suggesting, is knowing that you're going to lose an average of $35 million in assessed value every year, that drives you to levy higher, just to keep your amount of money stable.
Well, that just forces us to have to appeal to see to it that it does go lower.
And that's, you're right.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we on still this topic now, or? 'cause
We're still on the levy hearing.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Dan Kelly, 148th and Wando. You're saying 15%, 44%, you know, how do we, as homeowners, even know what we're gonna have to pay?
Well, that'll come once the tax bills are calculated, which won't be until.
But we can't
sometime-
appeal until we already know that.
It won't be until sometime in June or July. You'll get, sometime in June, May, June, you'll get an assessed valuation normally. You can, you know, at that point is when you have a right to appeal your assessed valuation.
I can add something to that.
Sure.
That might help. The tax bill that you receive in March, that you will receive in March, is going to be 55% of whatever you paid last year.
Correct. I understand that, but I'm just
The one you
saying,
receive in August will show the difference.
you're saying this number, this number, this number. What does that mean to me?
My tax bill is as confusing as yours. I don't know what my homeowner's exemption is. It changes every year. I have no idea. I've tried to figure out where they get the number. I can't figure it out. We don't know what the state multiplier is. It's the number they use to keep us balanced with the rest of the state. Typically, it's 2.5, 2.5. It has been higher, it has been lower. All of those affect the total number of tax dollars that you pay at the end of the day, because they affect your equalized assessed value.
I know that's the total amount, but I'm just talking just the park district part of it. How do I know what you're saying, where you're gonna raise the taxes how much? 14%, 1.5%?
It's not gonna, 1.5% would be the best guess to tell you right now. And it may not even be that. Over the years, if we were to apply the CPI, I did the CPI from 2010 to 2014, it comes out to 10.4%. If I compare our collection between those 2 years, it's about 4% increase. So we didn't even get the CPI. Because all these factors, they all make a difference.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Laura Marlin, 147th Street. I haven't been to a lot of your meetings, but I understand you were asking for more money. What are you doing to decrease your expenses?
Yeah.
We spent about 46% of our budget on salaries and benefits. We have continued to apply for grants and received grants. We have received energy grants. We have cut our lighting and heating bills. We have changed some of our vehicles to be more energy efficient. We have hired a landscaper to cut some of our maintenance costs. We tried our best to keep our fees for our programs stable as we can, because we realize that, you know, people are struggling.
And regarding your programs, what kind of participation in cost-wise? When I was on one item, like they charged the group $75 to participate, when in reality it was costing, not here, this was something else I belonged to, it would cost almost $150 per child. So, and what kind of participation do you have in a program? If it costs, say, like $75 a child, I don't know what you would charge on a group thing like that, but what kind of participation? Because even like in this other group, it was a school group, no matter how many children were on the team, whether it was 6 kids on the team or 12 kids on the team, a league fee was still $500. So, in that essence, those things were costing more money for other group, you know, a different size group. So what type of calculations do you feel that your programs are making money, or are they losing money?
Depends on the program. We basically set up the program on we put a minimum enrollment in so that we cover expenses. So it's a break even.
And are most of yours,
If we don't get a minimum enrollment, we don't run the program.
okay.
Okay. Seeing there's no more comments.
I have another question.
Yes.
My name is Theda Reed. I live at 4233 West 147th Street. I would like to know what happens with the money that is collected when you rent out the conference rooms here and when you rent out the Rady Lodge, where does this money go and how is this figured into the amount of money that you're asking for?
Well, the money that's collected for the rooms goes part of our budget.
Yeah, but where is it put?
I mean, where's
Given
it put?
income for each.
Is it a general fund? Is it,
It's part of the corporate fund.
Yeah,
and what does the corporate fund cover?
Just about everything except well, we have, what, 7 funds? Corporate, rec, social security, liability, workman's comp,
and then handicap, but
and
that's,
handicap. Those are our funds. So room rentals go into our corporate fund. And the rates are based on, we do a calculation of the hourly expense on a yearly basis, and that's what the rates are based on.
heat, light, power,
Salaries.
salaries for gym supervisors, setup, takedown.
Well, I noticed on the expenses for the village that there was expenses for Rady Lodge on that.
On the village side,
Yes.
they own the building.
So
Village owns the
they
building.
pay the repairs and things on the building?
Yes,
Then do you pay the village rent for this property?
we have an agreement with the village.
And what does it, what do you pay?
What the agreement says. Okay, the Rady Lodge, we took over the operation of Rady Lodge because the village was losing a lot of money on it. We took it over and the residents are happy that they have a place that stayed open for their convenience. So we do rentals there for residents, we do rentals there for non-residents.
You know, I don't understand why you're so evasive when we ask you a question about amounts of money and things. You know, our taxes are what pays this. So I don't know why it is such a hard thing for you to give us amount of money that things are costing. Everything is a big secret. There's no transparency here. We are entitled to know these things. You're asking for more of our money, but you aren't willing to tell us anything about what you do with our money.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
We pay the village $2,000. I would say that probably our gross income from Rady Lodge is about $20,000. It's not a huge cash cow by any means. And a part of the agreement is that we continue the senior lunches that are held once a month. And if we were paying for repairs and electric, the village doesn't pay for electric, so we don't pay an electric bill at Rady Lodge. But if we were paying for those, we'd be making next to nothing, and they'd probably close the building.
Not to ask a silly question, but if you guys can keep it running, why couldn't the village keep it running? Like, what offsets the cost for you to keep it going and not them?
This is what we do.
Is it that you feel that you're drawing people to it, that the village wasn't drawing people to it, to rent the venue?
And they were inaccessible. People wanted to rent, they couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Oh, okay.
Are there any other questions?
So if the village was actually looking to try and identify sources of new income to help offset some of the debt, they should maybe reconsider whether or not it was in their best interest to have it under the jurisdiction of the Park District versus the jurisdiction of the village of Midlothian. As we're
They were
looking at
losing
$24
over
million
$60,000 a year.
Because they couldn't promote it? Really?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just trying to gather, it seems that you guys are saying that you're promoting it, you know, you're more available, people who have questions, you're directing them to it, or they can find it better through you. That's all we're trying to understand.
The village came to us.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Stevens came to us and asked us to take it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, seeing there's no further comments, I'll close the floor to the public hearing at 7:35.
7:25.
7:25, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing and call the regular meeting Board of Commissioners, December 18th. Call to order. Roll call.
Mr. Granata?
Present.
Mr. O'Shea?
Present.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen is not here. Mr. Kolstad?
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comments?
I do.
Okay.
My name's Helen Lekovich, 4223 West 147th Street. I'd like to explain why I'm here. We're returning from the meeting several weeks ago where we had some questions and we were told to return and hopefully get some input on that. And so things that have been published made me think I should come back and explain why specifically I am here and what I hope to accomplish by attending the Park District meetings. The village is in a financial crisis, and along with a group of residents, I began attending every village board meeting 19 months ago. As one of many residents that had experienced 15 massive floods at that point, I was pursuing answers as well as relief for many residents from the ongoing financial nightmare. Unable to get reasonable response by bringing this problem to the attention of our elected officials on a bi-monthly basis, along with suggestions and research, I began to tackle the monumental task by attending many floodplain management meetings and contacting all the agencies concerned. We successfully pursued the help of elected officials on the county, state, and federal level, and our flood group has successfully brought relief projects to this village. We've achieved national recognition for our work and earned the respect of many agencies and government officials by contributing to changing laws. With this example in mind, we've proven that dedicated and concerned residents can make positive change. Unable to understand why the village of Midlothian has not obtained grant dollars or allocated tax dollars to address our monumental problem for decades, we began to educate ourselves and dive into the finances of the village as a whole. So while we understand the Park District, the library, the village may be separate taxing bodies, we the residents provide tax dollars. And we've looked at the spending on projects, grants obtained and met with tax dollars, and salaries across the board. We are in a financial crisis, and as residents contributing to the village spending, it seems reasonable that we should be allowed to ask questions and receive answers that are reasonable in return. So we've already looked at the salaries of the village employees, including police, fire, and public works, and we came here to inquire about the salaries at the Park District as well. So to be very clear, this is not a personal attack. It is an inquiry on spending during a financial crisis. It is not ridiculous for residents to be concerned that we have the potential to be taxed right out of our homes and our neighborhood. In the past approximate year and a half, several resident groups have formed to address serious issues. We are attending meetings that concern spending to enlighten ourselves so we can contribute to making this positive change. We came to this forum looking for answers just as we attend village board meetings. We are the residents, and the employees of the Park District are employed because we live here and do provide tax dollars. This brings on confusion as to why our questions are being met with a response on the Park District website which many residents perceived as an unprofessional tantrum and abusing the use of our Park District website. We're wondering why the answers were not brought back here in this venue for further discussion and clarification, which was our understanding. Once that was clarified, a productive account of all information could have been put out to inform residents of a solution via the Park District website and the newspaper. I believe that everybody in this room can either be a part of the problem or a part of the solution. We can also choose to solve the problem, or we can choose to be right, and everybody can take their pick. Let the record show that the reason many of us are here is to gain understanding to the concerns presented by Ms. Chiz. As we see the current conditions, we are in a financial crisis, changes need to be made, and we cannot afford, to keep spending at the current rate. We've invested in our village, and we're asking that our village invest in us. Keep in mind the average household income is an approximate $58,000 a year. Can we afford your decisions? This is something to consider. In closing, I will ask you to recognize, without having the infinite wisdom of God, it seems unfair to publish that you in fact know that Ms. Chiz's intentions, what they are. The last paragraph of the Park District's public response was, quote, "We only hope that we can foster more civil debates that are based on facts, not wild conjecture or speculation, and grounded in realistic expectations," end of quote. Since the group attending the last meeting wasn't able to get answers or hold a civil debate without the board responding to the questions that were asked, can you please explain what your intention was or what you hope to accomplish by publishing a public response without responding first to the residents asking questions? Would you also please clarify for the residents attending what you specifically consider, quote, wild conjecture, and what was it the residents were asking for that was an, quote, unrealistic expectation? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your comments.
So we don't get any response again to the questions? Are we gonna find those on the website? I mean,
And what are the
I'm not being
questions?
smart, I'm just asking. We came back because the questions, you said you'd have some answers, and instead we got that crazy bit that you guys all somehow signed on, so still no answers from then, and we can't ask what your intention was today either, or what was the unrealistic expectations, and what was the wild conjecture? Can we at least get that?
Well, there was a lot of misinformation in what was put through at the last meeting.
That's the wild conjecture?
Well,
Okay. I'm just trying to get, you guys put it out there, so you must know what you're talking about. And what was our unrealistic expectation?
unrealistic expectation. The comments about two persons that work for the Park District who do a fantastic job and are great stewards of the money that we do get and what we've done with the parks over the last 20 years, and that they make too much money. Well,
So what was
in comparison to what other park districts directors are making, it's not out of line.
Okay, well, I'll just add to that, you know, it would have been nice if somebody could have shown up today with some, you know, papers that showed that, so we could see that, because see, that's the way we would like to iron out problems, is we would like to bring concerns to you, and we're working with, say, the data and facts that are available to us, and if you have something different, we would expect then that you could come back to us and being part of that solution to help us understand, which is ultimately why we're here, is to give us those facts and show us, and then we could all be in agreement and we can move forward. But, you know, when I was here last week after the meeting ended, I got a paper flagged in my face that nothing on it made sense. I don't even know why I was approached. And then when I asked to see the actual facts and figures lined up with the actual communities, I was yelled at and told I would never see that information. So I was really hoping it would be here tonight so we could put this issue to rest. But, you know, if you're not interested in helping us understand, you're just leaving a bunch of people who don't understand angry because we don't understand. So if you could just support, you know, we can come back again if you could just support what you're saying with something we can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, sir. I would like to thank the board for taking the time to review the petition and for posting the salaries as we requested on the website and publicly posting them in the paper. The two primary goals for the petition were to ask for improvement and accountability. We're trying to have an open door form of government within this community that allows all the residents to be able to be better informed about the decisions being made so that we can actually be respectful of the governing bodies that have to make those decisions and how money is being allocated. It was discouraging to hear a member of this board tell residents at the last meeting that you're under the impression that residents are happy with the performance of the Park District since we're not in attendance at every meeting. We hope that you're now going to consider that most residents don't want to come here and stand out in front of you to air concerns or their disapproval. They fear that you're going to publicly call them out, discredit them, or belittle them and their opinions. This is precisely what you did to me by singling me out on your response to the public petition. The statement I read to you was my own personal statement. It was not what the petition signers signed their names to. So for you to spend so much time addressing public criticism of my personal statement not only seems unprofessional, but it also seems like you're using your website as a bully pulpit to personally criticize me as a resident for coming forward with my own personal statement of concern.
That's not how it was presented last week.
Where do we see personal statement?
You presented it that you were the representative of the 220 petitioners on that document.
Over 250 people signed that petition that are Midlothian residents.
And
And
you were the
I said I would
spokesperson
like
for
to
them.
read a personal statement in advance, and then I said, and this is what the public petition reads, and here are the 6 or 7 points that are on that petition, and these are what residents have asked for, in addition to providing their own commentary of what they have asked for improvement. So, for the record, I am formally requesting that a retraction and written public apology be made immediately regarding the following statement. In her prepared remarks.
Excuse me, is that funny and professional to you? Wow.
Maybe you'd like to share his joke.
Wow.
Here's what you stated. In her prepared remarks, Ms.
I wasn't
Chiz
paying any attention.
tried to mislead
That's
residents
propaganda.
by insinuating the director's salary was on par with what she called affluent suburbs of Orland Park. Well, they are affluent. She claimed that $102,000 was paid to Orland Park, and Naperville she claimed $102,800. This is a complete fabrication, end quote. This statement is not only defamatory conjecture to state that my intentions in providing the web links and printed copies of the salaries paid to Orland Park District staff and Naperville Park District staff were meant to intentionally mislead residents. The web links for these reports are found when doing standard internet searches for Park District salaries, and they provide residents with an insight into the pay structures of 2 additional Park Districts. Excuse me. Indeed, the base salary amounts which I quoted were indeed accurate, and here are the printouts showing these figures. I'll ask you to read it.
Those are not in comparison with the positions that you're talking about.
Naperville Park District, 2014, estimated salary, Park District Director, $102,800. Let's show the next one.
What's the name? The director is Michael McGurry. You have the wrong
Bill,
person.
why are you guys not showing up with your
You
data?
have the wrong name, Mark.
You
That's
can't just
Kevin
tell us
Finnegan.
something,
That
why
is
aren't
not
you
the
coming
director
with
of
it?
Naperville Park.
That's how
Village of
ridiculous
Orland
it
Park,
is.
Director of Recreation.
That's a
Again,
rec
Okay.
director.
That is not an executive director.
Jen Eustace's position.
Regardless of that information or
No,
not,
wait,
this
wait.
is exactly what was quoted. These web links were provided in their entirety for any resident who is interested into having an insight into how Park District salaries are structured into these 2 communities that offer open door government. They could read the entire spreadsheet
and all information that was disclosed there. It was not limited to a statement. Secondly, the main thing that people were reading and comparing was a 2012 FOIA report from your financial officer, and the main thing that residents were taking issue with were the current salaries and the high rate of increase which the board has approved annually. The director's pay has increased $35,000 in the last 7 years. That's what residents were upset about. They were looking at a salary of $85,000 and feeling outraged. They were not looking at the current salary of $106,000.
It's not the current salary. That's salary and benefits.
Especially in light of the financial crisis that has come to the forefront in our community. We're a small, financially challenged blue-collar community, and therefore we should expect to be within the 50% range or lower in terms of comparing our park district with those of other communities. Many residents directly expressed this in their own words on the public comment section of the online petition. Your next statement. First and foremost, Ms. Chiz, as well as a few other residents, took issue with our director's compensation package. However, over 250 people took exception with this in signing it and asking you to decrease the salary to a more reasonable level.
I included the ones from Worth and everybody else on it.
It is also an improvement to have you and the director offer up the 2013 South Suburban Parks and Rec Professional Association compensation report for a more accurate comparison. Since this is what you're justifying as comparative pay, it would really help to further the discussion and further an understanding of community residents for what to expect. Why is it so hard to make this comparison? So, Mr. Colston, you reviewed this comparative report. What park districts are we on par with in what we're paying our director?
Well, in comparison, we're not in Naperville. We're not in Orland Park.
We shouldn't be. What are we in comparison to?
Well, in comparison to the South Suburban Park districts.
Are we paying more or less than Oak Forest?
I'm right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Of what?
Of 29 South Suburban Park districts.
Okay, you said that we have unrealistic expectations, so we're asking you to tell us why we're unrealistic by giving us facts that support your argument, for lack of a better word right now, and you're just not. You're, again, just throwing random names out with random, just nothing. It shouldn't be this hard. Either we are on par with something that's comparable or we're not. And we just want to understand, and we can go home. If you're going to just keep being vague, we have to keep coming back. Don't you want to get rid of us? We don't want to come back.
You said you're right in the middle of what the 29 park districts are. Where is Midlothian and versus annual income per resident to those 29 communities?
I don't have that number. It's part of the survey that we do every year.
But see, that's where Mary was coming from. It's not apples to apples just to say, I'm in the middle of the group. If we're not in the middle of the group.
The middle of the group, it does include Orland Park, it doesn't include Naperville, they're not.
That's fine, but take the 29 communities you were talking about and tell us where we're at as a village.
Sir, quite frankly, Mr. Kelly, the survey is done by the South Suburban Professional Association. It's their survey. They are not willing to hand it to somebody.
Right, I understand that, but you're sitting there saying we're in the middle. But where we are in the middle of
the high salary is $145,000, the low salary is $32,000.
Well, can you give us a list of the communities?
Right, the
I give
29
you a list of the
communities.
communities, and you can
And the
FOIA every
salaries.
one of them, or go on their website.
And you can't give this to us now?
No,
Because?
I cannot give you the list because it's done by the professional association and it's not done for public publication.
So who's gonna look like the idiots when we get the actual names of the villages and salaries? Are we gonna look like the idiots? Because that's the question everybody in this room needs to ask themselves. We just wanna know. And who's gonna look really, really bad when we're comparing Midlothian to who? You know, this whole thing could have just went to rest if we could have just gave us the answer.
Well, you're trying to compare us to Orland and Naperville, but you're using wrong information.
What we're saying is we'll compare it to the
Information was-
29
We'd like
committees you're
we'd like
talking
to have
about if you tell us
accurate
who they are.
information.
Well, it was there, Mary, but you didn't use it.
Where
You
was
chose
it?
to use something
Where was
else.
it?
I'll show it to you on that form that you have. I downloaded it also.
No, I'm asking you
Why
for
did
how
they
the,
not
what
bring
is
it?
the accurate comparison? What is the accurate
You're
comparison?
saying that the director of
Mr.
Naperville makes
Colston.
$102,000, and that's wrong. He
Mr.
makes
Colston, as president of this
$236,000.
board, we are asking you, not your employee, we are asking you directly to provide accurate information about comparables, per capita income, tax base, average household income, and what it is compared to the director's salary for each one of our towns. If you have had
I don't
access,
have that information.
if you've looked at the report that has been provided by the current director, and that is what you based your remarks to me personally in the newspaper on, then I demand to have that justification. Do you understand?
What was the foundation then on the wild conjecture and the unrealistic expectation if you can't even give us your findings? And you're accusing, you know, that's the part that I just don't get. You know, because I've been the one I was accused for over a year of being the wild crazy fraud lady, and I went out there and I brought all kinds of money and projects our way, and the high paid employees who sat in those seats for over 30 years didn't do anything, and I think that's something to be embarrassed of. So, you know, we would like to go away, but we're just sort of tired of nobody wanting to answer what everybody wants to know, and we shouldn't have to beg.
I'd also like to just make two other small points. So, one of the other things that that petition asked for was that you look for new candidates to fill these positions. So, at the last week's committee meeting, which Valerie did post as part of her documentation for providing open meeting access to village residents, the director made a statement basically to the effect that you are not going to find qualified candidates to fill the positions if we reduce the pay scale. And so to make an apples to apples comparison, if we were talking about we can't find a professional person in the Park District realm of professionals, to make an apples to apples comparison, if we'd taken this approach to filling the same positions 15 to 17 years ago, your current director would not have been qualified herself. She was a longtime resident of the community and a retired teacher, and she was willing to work at the pay scale offered for the job. Since our current pay scale puts our Park District on par with at least 50% of the Park Districts on your report, it seems reasonable for you to find many qualified candidates to consider for the jobs. 50% of them are at least on the same level we are. Mrs. Gleason also advised you that posting an open call for the director and program director every 4 years would, and I quote, would not attract quality employees and at best would make Midlothian a training ground for park directors of other communities, end quote. Program director's position is, as I understand it, an at-will employee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Which also means, just as an explanation here, that you can hire or fire that employee at will based on whether or not you feel that they are meeting the needs of your determination for the job, correct?
Yes.
So, at any one point in time, for you to say, we're interested in just comparing what other candidates are available, should not really be a threat. This person is an at-will employee that may or may not have a job for any length of time. Similarly, the director's position is filled by an agreement on a 4-year term. There is nothing guaranteeing this employee of the position beyond the contract until it is renewed. So for our suggestion, which is wild conjecture, for us to say, we think it's reasonable that when these positions are coming up for contractual renewal, you annually, at that point, 4 years or whatever your term of contract is, you do put out a call and see whether or not there are other people who are willing to work at a similar salary rate, a lower salary rate, offer better skills, want to take the Park District in a new direction that you feel fits the community's needs better. That is what we asked you for. As far
As far as the grant funding request as testimony to why you believe that Evelyn is the best candidate for this position, I would just like to make one personal statement, again, according to what my research shows. You stated that Midlothian is one of the few, if not the only community in the South Suburbs that's never lost a grant request in the past 10 years. And although it seems highly unlikely that I need to submit an official FOIA to the DNR to correct this statement, I'd like to show you that the OSLAD grant awards from 2014, 2012, and 2011. I'll give you these reports. They're going to show you that the park districts are awarded grants many times over based on grant applications submitted, the money is available by the state. In the last 2 years alone, and it's not a south suburb, but Addison Park District has been awarded $800,000 in state funds in the last 2 years alone, equal to the amount that Mrs. Gleason has acquired on her own in the last 17 years she's worked here. Now, I'm going to just say this. It is an accomplishment to get the grants. As a resident, I'm deeply appreciative that the grants were gotten, then the park improvements were made, and I thank Mrs. Gleason for her hard work to get them. It is not necessarily a justification for keeping on an employee who has a 4 to 7% annual increase in their pay when we are a financially strapped community and no further large-scale park renovations are required at this time. What we are looking for is a reinvestment into the grassroots portion of our community by providing better programming at more reasonable rates and a diversification of offerings that bring residents together rather than sending them to other communities to look for programming. You also have the option of having your salary negotiations.
You have much more to go.
No, I do not. You have your salary negotiations as an option to be closed-door meetings. As you can see, many residents are interested in trying to have more feedback into the way their dollars are being spent. So even if it is a temporary consideration, we would ask, the same way we did before, that you have a public session to discuss how the salary increases are going to go through and why you're awarding different percentages based on different employees so that we can be better informed. That does seem reasonable to me. Ms. Yeska is not here tonight, but I did have a personal statement to make to her. And I wanted to tell her that the new postings on the Midlothian Park District Facebook page are a definite improvement to keeping the community up to date on programs. And I'd ask that she please keep them up. The social media reaches many residents much faster than old school print collateral, even though the program book did arrive today. By having a set of programs you are locked into, you therefore eliminate the ability to be able to adjust your programming to what residents' needs really are. I'd also like to personally state that the team dances for November and December were both very well received by my daughters and their friends in the tweenie group, and I'd love to see these continue for a while. As a parent, I'd like to ask that you also try to develop some family programs like roller skating or ice skating that invite older kids to recreate with their families rather than having separate activities for each group. I have a family group that does everything together, as do many of my friends. In fact, many residents here do things with their families, and we miss that opportunity to recreate together. I'd also like to ask that you develop a survey to collect information from the community to see where residents' interests lie, and develop programs around these needs. And this is why we presented a range of program books from other communities. I will look for that public apology and written retraction in the paper next week.
Can we ask that when we're having a meeting, that the trustee listen to us when we're talking?
Yeah.
I mean, he's talking, they're talking to each other, and they're laughing. She got mad about it. He even said, we're not listening to what you were saying anyways. That's exactly what he said.
Why are you here of service to us then?
We expect
Respect.
respect from you, just like you should expect respect from us.
And this whole thing wouldn't be boring you if you had just come with the data and shown us. We could have all been done. And you know, 9 times out of 10, I find that if somebody can't give you an answer, it's because they don't want you to have it.
Yes.
I'd like to know if you and each of you people that put your names on this article on the paper, do you agree with what is on this paper?
Of course I do.
Do you, Mr. Shea?
Yes. Chuck. What? You agree with that?
Do you agree to what you put your name on here on this paper?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Excuse me, how many are up for re-election this coming April?
I am.
Good.
Okay. Who else? You, Mr. Shea? Okay, thank you very much.
Knock yourself out.
As your
I'm
attorney
about to
there
knock
will
myself
tell
out,
you
you
that
too.
Defamatory conjecture is a slander, is grounds for a slander lawsuit, and if I do not see that
What is
retraction
what?
printed, ask your attorney. He'll be glad to explain it to you. You should have had him review your statement, Evelyn, before you asked the board to sign it.
We did.
Fabulous.
It's amazing what's funny. Gonna be
Any
real
other
funny.
comments?
Really funny.
Okay, I'm gonna close public comments. I need approval of the special meeting minutes of November
Should be 13.
13th.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Granada?
Aye.
Mr. Colstad?
Aye. I need approval of the minutes of November 20th.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Granada?
Aye.
Mr. Colstad?
Aye. Committee reports, director's report, Evelyn?
Just some updates from our committee meeting of last week. First of all, in regards to the picnic date of June 27th that was requested by Midlothian Baseball, after reviewing the problem internally in the office, we have contacted baseball and told them that we will approve the June 27th date, and we will do our best to accommodate their needs, although it is the day after Thunder over Midlothian. It's going to be difficult. And you also have the use agreements on the agenda for approval tonight with the changes that we're requesting a copy of their annual budget and their bylaws as part of the agreement. An update on the electric at the rec center. We finally got an electrician to come out. He's determined that 2 of the phases that basically support the north end of the building are out. His investigation showed that there's more than likely water in the conduit, and the conduit is buried in the concrete floor. So the only way to correct it is to run 2 new lines from the mechanical room at the south end of the building up to this end. So we continue to have some of the outlets in this room that are not functioning, an outlet in the copy room, a couple of outlets in the lobby. So he is expected to be out actually Monday. We're going to have to shut down portions of the building in order for him to work, and since this is a slower time with the Christmas holidays coming up, we hope to be able to get this done. It will be on a time and materials basis. I talked to Representative Rita the other day about our pending park grant, and I sent him some information that he requested, and he's trying to get some information from the governor's office, which they've not been real forthcoming, to let us know where we stand with that. He doesn't know if they've all been given, if there's still opportunity, or what's going on, but he promised to check into it and let us know. And finally, a reminder that beginning in January, our board meetings will be moved to Rayday Lodge. We have a couple of rentals in here on board meeting nights, and we've been able to meet in other locations, but given the size of the audience that we've been having, we're going to have to, we don't want to lose the rental opportunity, so we'll move over to Rayday Lodge for the board meeting. The committee meetings will continue to take place in room 23, starting in January. Under recreation, as you know, the program brochures have gone out. Saturday is our Polar Express event. It's a sold-out event. Last night was our trolley trip, was very well received. We had a nice crowd for that. And other than that, we'll kind of go, there's, you know, a lot of people taking time off during the ensuing holiday weeks.
Okay. Maintenance, safety, and security,
I have nothing at this time.
public relations,
I have no report.
finance and budget. I have nothing at this point.
I have one thing there. Joe McDonald filed the debt disclosure information with the county. We thought our auditor had handled it, but he had not, so I have a copy of that if anybody is interested in seeing that.
Human resources.
The winner for this month is Tommy
Parchment.
Parchment. Staying past scheduled time to work party. I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Med attorney's report?
Nothing. No.
Okay, under new business, I need approval of the 2015 meeting schedule.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. I need approval of the ordinance 237, which is the 2014 levy.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. I need approval of the resolution 14-01, instructing the county treasurer how to apportion our tax levy reductions.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. I need approval of the use agreements with the youth groups.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. I need approval of the revised rental prices.
And if I could just add, remind you that these prices will only go into effect when the minimum wage is increased, when that happens.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. I need approval of the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion.
Yes. I'll second it.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. And I need approval of the bill list.
You have the revised one, with the new bills on it.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel issues.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Granado?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. O'Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Colstead?
Aye. Yeah. Okay, we don't have any actions after,
I probably not.
okay. Okay, at this time that our regular session is adjourned.